This meeting is being held in compliance with the Brown Act. SCAG offices are open for members of the public to attend and participate in person. Instructions for providing public comment have been provided in advance and are also included in the agenda packet. Members of the public participating remotely should ensure their microphone is muted when not in use. Any member of the public calling into this meeting by telephone can press *6 to mute and unmute. All telephone participants should identify themselves prior to speaking. SCAG encourages all members of the public to participate in its meetings. We are committed to holding meetings accessible to people with disabilities. For members of the public requiring ADA accommodation, please call 213-630-1410. SCAG offers free interpretation services for members of the public needing information in another language. Please call 213-236-1895. The meeting will now begin.
Good afternoon. Thank you for all of you for coming this afternoon. Today is Thursday, March 6th. And I want to start off there. We got their cards in their little boxes, right? Make sure we have a quorum count. Thank you. And I'm going to ask Mayor Tran. I was trying to find someone with a mouthful of food to do the Pledge of Allegiance, but y'all eat very quickly. So Mayor Tran, do you mind leading us?
Your heart, ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Has been hacked by the CCP thugs. Fuck niggers, fuck niggers. Hacked by the CCP thugs. Glory to the...
Start off with Community Economy and Human Development Committee, Honorable David Shapiro.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Today, the CHD Policy Committee welcomes several new members to our committee, including someone who spent a lot of years here working hard, Peggy Huang from Yorba Linda, Judy Woolsey from Yucaipa, Shauna Elias from Regional Council 33, Victoria Garcia, Regional Council 67, Gary Gardner, Regional Council District 2, and Joe Baca, Rialta, SBCTA, and Thomas Alva from El Centro, ICTC. The CHD Policy Committee also heard two excellent presentations on information items related to regional resiliency. First, we had Mr. Tennis Wick with Sonoma County, who shared the County of Sonoma how they rebuilt after a series of devastating wildfires and the mutual aid support that they provide to other fire-impacted communities, including currently the Eaton Fire. Next, Ms. Tamara Thedford, Vice President of Impact Evaluation at CNOTE, gave a presentation on Community Development Financial Institutions, also known as CDFIs, and how they can serve as a strategic financial tools that help support resilient rebuilding efforts after a disaster. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for the report. We'll move on to Jenny Crosswright, the Energy and Environmental Committee.
Thank you, Chair. This morning we had our Energy and the Environment Committee. We had one informational item on climate resilience districts. We had lots of information given and a very robust discussion. Our presenters were Joseph Dieguez from Cosmont Companies, Tanya Narath from Soma County Transportation Authority, and the Regional Climate Protection Authority. and Nguyen Tara Key from California Forward. They provided background on what climate resilience districts are and can do, how they compare to other tax increment financing tools, the range of eligible investments, the process and requirements for establishing them, their role in increasing overall resilience and reducing the risks from hazards such as wildfires, and their potential to help maintain and subsidize insurance costs in vulnerable communities. So lots of information. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. We'll move on to Tim Sandoval, the Transportation Committee.
Thank you, President Hagman. The Transportation Committee took action on 2 items this morning. The 2 are the STBG CMAQ program guidelines and call for project nominations, and the SCAG 2025 Regional Active Transportation Program. As all of you know, these items are critical programs which SCAG facilitates on behalf of our membership to continue to meet the goals of our Regional Plan Connect SoCal by funding numerous mobility projects throughout the region. We had 2 informational item presentations. The committee also focused on the topic of regional recovery and resilience in the face of disasters following last month's JPC discussions. The presentations emphasized the transportation issues associated with recovery, rebuilding, and resilience. Speakers included representatives from Caltrans District 7, Emergency Response Operations, and from Ventura County Transportation Commission, discussing their recently completed emergency preparedness plans and associated transportation challenges. Also, the chairs of each policy committee have met with executive leadership in an effort to ensure SCAG's ongoing regional planning efforts, recognizing some of the significant challenges our region faces with respect to resiliency and recovery. These discussions are planned to be ongoing for April. I have 5 more bullet points, but for the purposes of brevity here, I will not read all of them. So thank you. Back to you, President Hagman.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you for that. We're going to start off our action items. Ruben, do we have any accommodations we need to do this week?
We do. Thank you, Mr. President. One of the RC members, Mayor Navarro from Colton, will be participating remotely as an accommodation under the Americans with Disabilities Act.
So we'll do voting as normal, but he could do his verbally.
That is correct.
Maggie will figure that out.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, please, Comey, go ahead. We'll go to action item number 1.
Thank you, Mr. President. The first action item is the comprehensive budget that's before you. Every year we come to the Regional Council, first the EAC and the Regional Council in March to present our budget. Allows us the 1-month circulation.
Yes, Sentinel? No.
I want to quickly address the fact that this budget is it's a drop from last year's budget, and Cindy will talk about some of those details. I don't want to steal her thunder, but the one question that's come up often is what the potential impact of the new administration is on our budget going forward, and we've obviously been paying attention to all of the happenings in DC and been back to DC a couple of times this year already. I think what I will report, and we'll continue to update you as things evolve. What I'll report is we don't see any significant impact at this point on our budget. If I call your attention to page 12 of your agenda, there is a chart there. There's recurring funding sources. Those funding sources are formula funds that come out of already appropriated funds by the Congress. So we have been assured by the administration that those funds are not subject to any of the pullbacks that we've seen, and that's been confirmed over and over again. So we have some solace there. What's been at risk are discretionary funds, the one-time funding. To date, we haven't seen any callback on the funds that we have listed on our programs as well. In fact, if anything, we've seen confirmation going forward that some of the discretionary funding might actually be sustained also by the administration. So I just want to lead with that before I hand it over to Cindy, because I know that question has come up, and obviously everybody is concerned seeing the level of cutbacks that we've seen in Washington, D.C. Cindy?
Thank you, Comey, and good afternoon, everyone. I am pleased to be presenting our fiscal year 26 draft comprehensive budget totaling $391 million. This morning, the proposed budget was presented to the Executive Administration Committee, where they unanimously voted in support of the budget before you. Our budget adoption process is a bit unique and likely different than the process followed by your local agencies. Similar to your agency, SCAG is required by our bylaws to adopt an annual comprehensive budget. However, in addition, SCAG is required by federal and state law to develop an annual overall work program. With your approval today, we will release our overall work program for a required 30-day public comment period. We will then return to the Regional Council in May for final approval. And in compliance with our bylaws, the general fund budget and the membership assessment schedule will be approved by the General Assembly in May as well. So as mentioned, the fiscal year 26 draft comprehensive budget totals just under $391 million, which, as Comey mentioned, is about $44 million or 10% below the current year budget as it stands today. The fiscal year 26 budget before you is largely a continuation of the work that is currently underway, and the reduction in our budget reflects the progress that we've been making toward completing the agency programs. 76% or nearly $300 million of our total budget is comprised of competitive or non-reoccurring grants. The most significant of which includes the $207 million for the REAP-2 program, the $65 million for the Last Mile Freight program, which includes both grant and local match amounts, and $12 million for the Safe Streets for All federal grant. Since these revenues are non-reoccurring, we would expect the annual budget to decline as we make progress towards completing the grant work. So it makes sense that of the $44 million in decline that we previously mentioned in our budget, $49 million is coming from a reduction or a spend down of these one-time grant revenues. Offsetting that decrease, then, of course, is an increase in our reoccurring revenue sources of just about $6 million, which is attributable to a carryover of current year funding into fiscal year 26 to fund ongoing projects. When we look at our comprehensive budget, the largest component is our overall work program, which totals just under $385 million and is spread across 35 different agency programs. Within the staff report on page 18 of your agenda packet, a chart has been provided that details the total budget for each of these programs. And within the comprehensive budget document itself, starting on page 53 of your packet, you can find narratives for each program that describes the program's objectives and its alignment with our strategic plan. The total budget is broken down by major expenditure category in table 2 of the staff report provided. Our total $390 million of our total $390 million budget, over 50% or $201 million is allocated for pass-through payments or technical assistance to local agencies throughout our region. And if you include the Last Mile Freight program, which started before we started tracking pass-through payments separately, that percentage actually increases to 68% or $266 million of our total budget being distributed out to our local agencies in the region. The next largest category is consultants, which totals $59 million. The largest components of this budget includes $20 million for the carbon reduction, surface transportation block grant and congestion mitigation, and air quality programs. $17 million for the Last Mile Freight program, which is really a pass-through program. $8 million to support Connect SoCal development, outreach, and implementation, and $11 million to support our REAP-2 and other one-time grant-funded activities. Next is our salaries and benefits budget. It's just under $50 million when combined. This budget funds 237 positions, which is an increase of 2 limited term employees and the conversion of 1 employee from part-time to full-time. The details of these specific staffing changes have been included as attachment 2 of the staff report provided. There is no proposed change to the SCAG staff salary schedule, and the only proposed employee benefit change is to decrease the waiting period for short-term disability from the current 30 days to 14 days, which has an estimated annual cost of $57,000. In-kind and cash local other are match commitments predominantly related to our Last Mile Freight program, as I mentioned. And last but not least, the other cost category is used to set aside labor budget from one-time multi-year grants. And as I've already noted, we are continuing to make progress on completing our one-time grant commitments. So here you can see a corresponding decline in the set aside for future labor costs from $40 million to $25 million. To close out my presentation, the proposed general fund budget totals $2.8 million. The general fund budget provides funding for the regional council and its subcommittees for stipends and travel, the General Assembly, and other expenditures that are likely not grant eligible. As mentioned, the general fund budget and membership schedule will be submitted to the General Assembly for approval on May 1st. The membership assessment is calculated in accordance with the SCAG bylaws, and the membership dues are adjusted by the recent year-over-year consumer price index change. The calculated membership dues for each agency can be found starting on page 86 of your agenda packet. With that, that concludes my overview of our proposed budget, and staff recommends that the Regional Council move the action before you. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Most of my budget stuff for other committees go a lot longer, so appreciate the great report. And any public comments on this item? Any questions for Cindy on this item? If not, we'll entertain them. Oh, you moving it?
Shapiro second.
Got a motion? Did you get that, Maggie? And second by
Can we confirm
Shapiro.
the second?
Shapiro's second. And don't forget, you got to do the 1, 2, 3 thing.
So I will proceed to start the voting, Mr. President. 1 for yes, 2 for no, 0 for abstain.
I'm going to call on Mayor Navarro as well.
Mayor Navarro, if we can get your vote, AV, if you can please allow him to speak.
My vote is yes.
Thank you.
And I can't see video, Maggie.
Not a problem. We've actually put a pause on that, but we've made a note that you are on the meeting. And Mr. President, I will proceed to stop the voting. And the motion passes, which includes Mayor Navarro's vote for 40 yes, 1 no, 0 abstentions.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. Move on to item number 2, FFY 2026-27 and 27-28 STBG and CMAC program guidelines. Project nominations. Turn over their Executive Director, Comey.
Thank you again, Mr. President. Before you today is the program guidelines for the 2026, 27, 27, 28 STBG and CMAC program for the region. This is also a call for nominations that goes out through May, and ultimately we'll be back to present projects to you for approval in December. I just want to first of all take a moment to thank all of our stakeholders and the staffs across the region that worked with our staff to get to this point. We are about a month behind in the conversation, but I think we're up to speed with just taking our time to understand what effects the new administration might have had on this program. This is one of those formula programs. It was part of the IIJA bill, and so the funding level is reflected in that. And of course, we're going through a process right now to update the reauthorization, which will be due next year. So you will hear more about programs like this as we talk about reauthorization. But this program has about $1 billion in it. It's an opportunity to do projects that are consistent with the plan, the Regional Transportation Plan, Connect SoCal. It's also an opportunity to get resources to all of our agencies to update their infrastructure along the lines of creating choice and mobility opportunities across the region. We've had conversations about this at the Transportation Committee, and I don't think we're doing a presentation here, but we're available to answer any questions for that matter on what's before you. With that, we'll ask for an approval of this program guideline so that you could go out and the call for nominations will then begin to get projects in for consideration and your voting on those projects come end of the year.
Thank you, Comey. So we did hear this in Transportation Committee and no opposition to that. Does any public have any questions on this item? Any questions of Comey or staff on this item from board members?
President, I'll move the item.
Thank you. We got a motion. Maggie's got it. We got a
Yes, we
motion
have
second.
the motion made by Sandoval, second by Bucknam.
We'll have a vote on it. Please.
Members, before I open the voting, if you're still showing the previous vote, please press X on your devices to clear that vote. I will proceed to display the item and then also start the vote. AB, if you can allow Mayor Navarro to speak. Mayor Navarro, how do you cast your vote?
My vote is a yes, Maggie. Thank you.
You.
Get it?
Thank you. Yes, we captured that.
All right, thank you.
How do you clear the screen?
To clear this screen, press X.
X.
If you still have the previous vote on there, press X. X is an X-ray. Yeah. We'll still give it a few more minutes or seconds, I should say. Mr. President, I will proceed to close the vote. And the motion, including Mayor Navarro's vote, is 39 votes yes, 0 votes no, and 0 abstentions.
Thank you, Maggie. We'll move on to consent and information items. Those are items 3 through 10. Does anybody like to pull anything off on that? Yeah.
Mr. President, Frank Yokoyama, I noticed that the minutes of our February 6th meeting indicate that I was not in attendance at the regional council meeting. I'd like to correct that. I was in attendance at the regional council meeting on February 6th. Thank you.
Thank you. Any public comment on items 3 through 10? If not, we'll entertain a motion as amended.
Move with the correction. Second, Manos.
Again, members, do
X.
X for
X
clearing.
before your number.
Yeah, X before your vote to clear it. And I will now start the vote. We'll give the members a few more seconds.
Maggie, my vote is yes.
Thank you, Mayor Navarro. And Mr. President, I'll proceed to close the vote. And the motion for the consent calendar to include Mayor Navarro's vote is 31 yeses, 0 votes no, and 0 abstentions.
Did we miss some?
The possibility we may.
Some people didn't push the X before they pushed their number. So do you want to go through it and see if anybody wants to add on, or we got enough?
We do have enough.
Okay. Sounds good. We'll go on to informational items. Item number 11 is a legislative update. Javier has not been busy at all with a new legislature and a new administration, but Javier, why don't you tell us what's going on?
Absolutely. Good afternoon, Mr. President and members of the Regional Council. Javier Cartagena, Chief Government and Public Affairs Officer for the agency. It's my pleasure to provide you with a quick update, maybe not so quick. And we will continue to provide you updates as things move along in Sacramento and Washington, D.C. In Sacramento, the deadline for bill introduction was February 21st, and a total of 2,350 bills were introduced.
Can I put you on pause 1 second? So I got a funny story on this. Okay, so myself, Don, a couple of us are recovering legislators here. We'll be the judge of that. So I went on a cruise. My son, for 18th birthday, showed up to Alaska. The governor from Alaska was from California originally, and he was the governor up there. And I was born in Alaska, but I happened to be a legislator when I went up there to visit. So we started talking. He goes, "Yeah, we had a really busy year this year. We had 3 bills." We're the only state that does this 2,400 bill BS stuff. But anyway, sorry, heavier.
No,
The
that's
average for the rest of the states has got to be less than 100.
definitely making the point. Yeah. And I like to note that last year we had about 2,124 bills. So it's an increase, and we were supposed to decrease that number this year. And as many as you know, legislative committees are now meeting and holding informational hearings. Of note, the Assembly Transportation Committee had a hearing about the decline in gas revenues, tax revenues, and we'll continue to monitoring these bills as they come along, because a lot of them, as you know, they're in spot bill format. Our focus this year will be in advocating for housing dollars, given the success of REAP 1 and 2 and our recovery efforts after the fires and needed changes to SB 375, among other issues. So the team is very busy in that front. On the federal side, there is a lot going on in Washington, D.C. So I'll preface this update with the fact that there are a lot of moving parts, uncertainty in many areas, and shifts that may or may not affect our work. So more to come. But so you know, we have been in strong communications with partners across the nation, including the National Association of Regional Councils and the Metropolitan Association, the Association of Metropolitan Planning Organizations, as we continue to evaluate the executive orders, memos, rulemaking actions from the administration. As Darren mentioned in our executive committee, SCAG is in a strong position to continue its regional work as the budget is comprised of many funding sources, but we must continue to demonstrate the value that regions bring to the table. In speaking with committee staff and congressional offices while in DC last month, right now they're in a information and gathering stage. They want to know how agencies are being affected. But I think we'll be in a more informed position in the next few months. If any of your jurisdictions are experiencing significant changes, please feel free to contact us. I know there was a mention of that by Member Crosswhite at the EAC. What we do know is that the US DOT is shifting priorities toward economic efficiency and cost-benefit analysis as they're evaluating transportation investments. And Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy has also indicated priorities focusing on permitting reform, state flexibility, infrastructure innovation, and project acceleration. So as Congress begins discussion on the next reauthorization bill, which is set to expire in 2026, this will succeed the IIJA. We will be engaging members in addressing some of those priorities. As President Hagman said at EIC, we'll continue at streamlining, looking at some streamlining proposals and other efficiencies that would be helpful for regions. Last month, we were at the NARC conference and COME met with recent DOT intergovernmental relations staff, and they indicated that where there was interest in the Olympics and Olympic work, the Paralympic Games coming, and they're looking forward to visiting the region as well. And as you are probably hearing in the press, there are 2 major budgetary negotiations going on right now in the Congress that may result in spending cuts to federal programs, including transportation and infrastructure, but we don't know how those are going to play out yet. First, on the government funding piece, funding for the federal government is currently operating on a continuing resolution, or CR, and that expires March 14th, so just a week from tomorrow. And Republicans were working with Democrat counterparts in the House and Senate to negotiate top-line spending levels. Those negotiations, as many of you know, are an impasse. So the chairs of the individual appropriation subcommittees didn't have direction and how much spending they could allow in individual appropriation bills. So just this last Sunday, House Speaker Mike Johnson said that he wants to pass the clean government funding extension through September 30th. That's the end of the federal fiscal year to avoid a potential shutdown. And then they would work on incorporating some cuts proposed by the Department of Government Efficiency. So that those would start in October 1st. The CR is expected to drop this weekend, so we'll be looking for that, and the team is aware that these are moving forward very fast. On reconciliation, Congress is also using the budget reconciliation process to pass a major financial package that includes tax cuts, spending cuts, and other budget-related policies. Leadership in the U.S. Senate prefers a two-bill approach to reconciliation, with the first bill containing budget reconciliation instructions for $340 billion, which was passed about 2 weeks ago, and that focus on border and defense spending and domestic energy production that could be fully offset by corresponding spending cuts. And then the Senate would then handle the various tax provisions in the second reconciliation at a later time. So this is what the president has been calling the one beautiful bill, and the House voted on this on voted at 217 to 215 to adopt a budget measure for reconciliation, which includes 4.5 trillion in tax cuts as well as 2 trillion in spending reductions. The House Ways and Means Committee is tentatively scheduled to meet next week to consider a long list of tax and spending pay-fors. And, as the committees meet, they will have more specifics on those impacts. There are still a lot of unanswered questions surrounding directives and potential implications. We are actively working to obtain how these updates will affect MPOs in the future, in monitoring developments as these come along. We do recognize there's a bit of uncertainty, and this will create, and we'll continue to work with the administration as these changes come about. Our legislative, I do want to mention that our Legislative and Communications and Membership Committee will be discussing our priorities for reauthorization. This is where we think we can have the highest level of impact. And Mr. President, I thank you for the opportunity to brief you and the Regional Council this afternoon. My team is here to answer any questions. We also have Leslie Polner from Holland and Knight on the phone. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I mean, this is going to be interesting year, so no vacations for you or your team. And I think we'll probably have at least a little update on every RC meeting, because it is changing. I want to say weekly, but daily or hourly. And it does, affect local government in some way or the other. Besides what's going on the federal level, you have half the legislature is new this year, or pretty close to it.
We do, and 17 members just in the SCAG region.
Yeah, so a lot of education to do, and a lot of work for our ledge team to do. I do think, even though there's a lot of uncertainty, there is also a lot of opportunity to have this ability to maybe streamline some of the things we have taken this as a given. If you ever done any highway projects, they have NEPA and CEQA or some other things. Hopefully we can work and streamline the way we do our work, and that will bring some cost savings going forward as well. But saying that, any public comment on Javier's report first? And then we'll move it to members, city members. Seeing none, this receive and file. So great job. If you answered all the questions about any questions, so good job. We'll now move on to the business representative, president, and executive director's report. Will any public comments before we start those? Seeing none. If not, Lucy, we'll turn to you. Tell us what's going on in the business community.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. And following Javier's report, it's first for new members. I'm the non-voting business representative, and I'm also chair of the GLUE Council, which is the Business Advisory Council to SCAG. So my job, I hope, is to try to present to you at these meetings some information where business and elected officials might cross connect, and we might be able to, ask for some help or have you think of different things that might help as we keep our Southern California region resilient. And so following Javier's report, business looks for certainty, right, in order to be able to invest and hire. And when we're looking at economic, trade, and policy uncertainties, and at last count, 41 court rulings at the federal level, it makes sort of predictions difficult, to say the least, for your business community. My report in your packet is on page 208. And clearly it looks like inflation is up, the market is down, there's no help yet in costs for consumers. And we don't see any relief in that area from the business community anytime soon. In particular for Southern California, and the housing that you guys are all under pressure to have to plan for and ultimately deliver. Builders are looking at tariffs and cost increases, certainly for lumber, depending on where we can get that. I heard one estimate that increases could be as much as 15% on the cost of a home. So we're keeping an eye on that one very closely. I know builders are trying to be very creative in looking at where their goods are coming from. Can they source from other areas? How can they produce onshoring some of their materials, and also looking at AI and innovation to help there. But the builders particularly ask for help from elected officials at the local level, to try to work with them to keep those costs down in this sort of standing on a waterbed kind of economy that we're on right now, because we just don't know where things are going to be. I also wanted to share with you that the Southern California Leadership Council and LA Economic Development Corporation just commissioned a report, quote, "Impact of the 2025 LA wildfires and a comparative study," unquote, was released on February 22nd with the assistance of Governor Gray Davis and Supervisor Catherine Barger, and Stephen Chung of LAEDC. Some very interesting findings. No surprise to this group because you're so well informed, but property damage is between $28 billion and $54 billion. I'm rounding these numbers. Job losses, 25,000 to 49,000 in job years. Labor income cost, $2 billion to $4 billion, and lost economic output for this area between $5 billion and $9 billion. The speed of recovery and rebuilding is key to lessening these negative economic impacts. And so everything, again, we can do, from the governor giving relief on CEQA, giving relief on Coastal Commission, we need to keep that pressure up for this area in particular. I've sent the link to this report to Maggie, and if it's appropriate, Mr. President, we can send this out to our colleagues so that they can study the reports. Very, very good information. And I know a lot of us are working in that regard to help with the speeding up rebuilding as quickly as we can. I also want to commend, I don't want to take any thunder from Comey's report, but I want to commend Kevin Kane and the members of the SCAG Economic Roundtable for their report write-up on the economic news for the region. I would urge you to take a look at this. It really gives you some good real-time data, and I know that they're trying to make it more in alignment with regional council meetings to give you some good economic data for your use. You can find that at scag.ca.gov/news. And that stuff is going to change. I mean, I'd love to see their reports come out weekly at this rate, but they are doing a great job in keeping some good data up for you and for your good planning. The next Glue Council meeting, our last meeting was postponed due to fire recovery efforts that were being done both by the private sector and the public sector. So our next Glue Council meeting is March 31st at 10 a.m. on Zoom. And we hope to have a good agenda, and I'll report back on that at our April meeting. So with that, Mr. President, that's best I can do is
That's awesome, Lucy. Thank you for the updates and
keep our fingers crossed.
keep those lines of communication open. We know how important businesses are to our local governments to keep them going. Maggie, let me know that 8 of us didn't know how to push the X before we pushed the 1 on the last consent calendar. So I'm gonna embarrass you by having her call you out and see if you want to add on your vote, if you don't mind, to make sure we have a full recorded vote. Maggie.
Brian Bayless,
Yes.
Margaret Clark, looks like it's a yes. Gary Gardner. Thank you. Mark Henderson. He left. Okay. Daniel Ramos,
Ramos, yes.
Steve Sanchez,
Yes.
thank you. David Shapiro,
It's yes on all 3, no matter what numbers showed up
What's
from
that
hacking.
section over there? That's a problem.
I
You
asked
guys
the
are not
super-
paying attention. You're
I
further
asked
away.
the supervisor
Tran.
first.
yes, thank you. Donald Wagner, is that? Thank you. Mr. President, the consent calendar passes with 39 votes.
Thank you, Maggie. It's that one section. Yeah, it's that one section over there, Don. You're leaving it down there. No, I will say it's probably the reception on these didn't come all the way up here, right? That's the reason why. The further away, the less radio frequency it has. All right, for my report, we do have the General Assembly coming up on May 1st and 2nd in Palm Desert. Vice President Marquez far exceeded my record, so give him a high five and tell him boo on the side. Okay, this is our 60th anniversary, so it's pretty cool. And it's a great place for us to network and meet our fellow members and for those that you represent to come out for that one time. So there's lots of resources, so make sure you plan to be there on the May 1st and 2nd. It's actually also includes our annual voting of SCAG new leadership and budget for the coming year. And so make sure you go to scag.ca.gov and get your tickets. Committee nominations. Speaking of the General Assembly, we have finalized the nominations for our annual scholarship committee and nominating committee. Please see the names on the screen. Look at that. High tech here. For our new committee members, our scholarship committee reviews applications and selects the recipients of annual scholarships, which will be announced at the General Assembly in May. The nominating committee removes the process to select incoming members of our RC Council leadership. Thank you for those members of the committees for their time and service to these endeavors. I want to give a shout out to Mayor Warren for Fontana, Comey, and several of us went to a ribbon cutting, which is kind of cool for the first of its kind in North America, I guess, medium and heavy duty vehicle, electric and hydrogen. And so there are 19 other countries, but first of the kind for North America. So congratulations, Aki, for doing that. Last month's meeting, we welcomed many new regional council members and policy committee members, and we continue that welcome for a special new member orientation session, which I thought was pretty cool. I was only here for about 20 minutes of it, but I had a lot of good reviews from it. February 26th. Alan, you were there. You said you liked it. And to onboard our new colleagues, we had nearly 30 local elected officials and their staff come in attendance to get the SCAG 101. So it took me 6 years to get my SCAG 101. So you guys are way ahead of me already. Okay. SCAG presented an overview of SCAG structure and work, and several former regional council members spoke of their experience with the SCAG. And I hope you join me in continuing to welcome our new members as they get up to speed in our important work together. The next RC meeting schedule will be on April 3rd at 12:15. And that's all I have. I'll turn it over to Comey.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have three quick items to cover. I want to first of all thank you again for approving our guidelines for the STBG CMAC funding program. Couple of things to add is the online application will be available for project proponents between March 31st and May 16th. So we'll have a long period of time for folks to turn in their applications. SCAG will host a couple of workshops on March 12th and March 18th. We will have we'll be able to engage potential applicants on walking them through the application process. We'll also be able to offer some office hours to provide assistance to whoever needs assistance. There will be further workshops hosted by the county transportation commissions on their own time. And we hope to be back to the regional council with awards in December of 2025, the end of this year. Javier mentioned that we attended the National Association of Regional Councils Conference of Regions. We call them NARC. And it was the
acronyms for everything.
Yeah, we do acronyms. We use the opportunity for being with other regions to figure out how regions are responding to the change in administration. So that was a really well spent time to sort of network with every other region across the country and how they're dealing with the issues that we're all facing. But we also took time to visit with the offices of both senators in DC, as well as a couple of representatives, Congress members. And we spent time with staff on the Senate and House committees that are dealing with reauthorization, again, just to continue to begin to help them frame the update to the reauthorization bill that's coming up, that should come up next year to replace the IIJA. And I also had a meeting. We had a meeting with a senior advisor to the Secretary of Transportation in the governmental relations staff, just to again get a sense of where their priorities are going to be, so that we are in some alignment. Altogether, it's just about making friends, making new friends in DC, and we thought it was a time well spent in DC. I should note that we will be going to Sacramento in 2 weeks. And so there will be opportunity to also do something similar with some of the board members and some of our stakeholders in Sacramento to meet with legislators and staff in Sacramento. The last thing I have is I was privileged to attend a groundbreaking for a intermodal transportation center in Calexico on Friday. It was on the way from Calexico that I happened to stumble on the ZM truck opening in Fontana. So it was a really rich Friday. The ITC project in Calexico is a $19 million project, and it's a significant project. It was the very first project that we funded with REAP funds that the regional council voted on, REAP 2.0, the very first project that was funded and used the money such that when we were all wringing our hands about the governor's cut, they had spent their money already, and that was money we couldn't get back to cut from. But it was money well spent. It's going to a project that's going to be significant to the city of Calexico and to Imperial County. It was a pleasure to see two of our board members there, members Goodsell and Robola, were there in support. And we also had Congressman Raul Ruiz there, and he presented a ton of money again to the project to fully fund it. One note is, Calexico by itself is not a big city, but across the border is 1 million people we have about 50,000 people crossing every single day back and forth into Calexico and going to points beyond. And this center, this hub, will be a very good mobility hub to help hopefully provide the choice that's necessary to make transportation mobility easy in that region. So it was a really a great privilege to be there and to be associated with that SCAG through the RIP funding program. And I want to thank Kate Kikongo. She led the unit that funded that project, and Sarah Jepson. They were part of that process. So it's always good to see our work and the votes that you all take actually happen in real life, and that was why that was really good. And we look forward to seeing more grantees have projects take shape, more refunds get into the ground across the region. We'll bring those to you as they happen. With that, Mr. President, be glad to take any questions.
Thank you, Comey. Any questions for Comey? I am going to surprise him with something that we were talking before you got up on the dais. Is I would like to see we can have a working subgroup on homeowners insurance to see if there's anything we could do, because I know it's probably affecting all our jurisdictions. So I see a lot of heads going, just to see if we engage with the industry and the insurance and come up with some pragmatic things if we can. Any other future agenda items or announcements? Yes, Daniel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to take a quick second to thank a huge thank you and show much appreciation to Director Comey, who's been helping us overcome a huge hurdle in the city of Adelanto. We have not, since 1985, we have not been able to develop alongside 395 because we haven't been able to get access to it. But within the last year and specifically the last 60 days, through his mentorship, his guidance, his quarterbacking, and telling me to show up here, show up there, introducing us to the right people, letting me jump in the suitcase when he goes up to Sacramento. Fingers crossed, we're about 60 days away from having that agreement modified and being able to build on 395, which is going to be massive to not only the city of Adelanto, but our surrounding areas. So thank you, Coleman, for all your hard work. I appreciate it. And when SCAG's ready for their remote office in the high desert, we'll have it ready for you.
Thank you. Any other announcements?